Some major changes may be coming to West Virginia's judicial system, and one change has already taken place at the state Supreme Court. The Charleston Gazette-Mail's Jake Zuckerman reports that the West Virginia Senate has passed a pair of proposals that will now go on to the House of Delegates for further consideration. The first, which passed along party lines with Republican support, would create an intermediate court of appeals that would establish a new level of judges and support staff to consider civil cases only. Criminal appeals still would go directly to the West Virginia Supreme Court, where intermediate court rulings also could be appealed. In addition, the West Virginia Senate unanimously passed a resolution that will ask voters to approve putting the court's budget under the oversight of the legislature. Currently, the court's budget must be allocated as justices request. A constitutional amendment is necessary to change the way the budget is handled. The Intermediate Court of Appeals has been a long-time priority for the state's business community, although the current Supreme Court says it isn't needed. Justices say it would cost more than $10 million a year, but senators who support the new body say those costs are inflated. The current Supreme Court also made news this month. Justice Margaret Workman was voted as Chief Justice, although Justice Alan Lawfrey had 3 years left in his term as the Chief.
And the new Intermediate Court, if approved by the House of Delegates, would hear certain appeals from circuit courts across the state. Civil cases, workers' compensation claims, abuse and neglect cases, and some other administrative appeals would be subject to the new court.
And Betsy, the West Virginia Supreme Court now hears all appeals, but it doesn't actually issue full opinions on them. Many are just short memoranda, something that the U.S. Chamber of Commerce's Institute for Legal Reform doesn't like.
Democrats who voted against the proposal say it's not necessary and that the money could be better spent in a number of ways, including state employee and teacher pay raises.
If created, the Intermediate Court would be broken into northern and southern districts, each with a panel of 3 judges who would be appointed by the governor.
On the budget issue, the court's spending has come under intense scrutiny this year after reports showed hundreds of thousands of dollars spent on remodeling offices. One of the items that got lawmakers fired up was a $32,000 couch in Justice Lawfrey's office. Newspapers across the state continue to write about ways West Virginia is trying to combat the drug epidemic, which has significant costs in both terms of dollars and lives. Dr. Michael Brummage, director of the state's new Office of Drug Control Policy, talked to Wendy Holdren for a story in the Register-Herald of Beckley. Dr. Brummage says he thinks it's important to discuss how adverse childhood experiences play a role in drug abuse. He says he thinks the response plan recently adopted by the Department of Health and Human Resources is well done and a good start that he looks forward to working with. Across the state, Jim McConville reports in the Journal of Martinsburg that a new study puts the financial impact of opioid addiction in West Virginia at $8.8 billion. That's the highest per capita amount in the country, according to the American Enterprise Institute, which recently released a study earlier this month. That comes out to nearly $4,800 per resident. Dr. Rahul Gupta, the state's public health officer, says the economic impact has been significantly underestimated over the years. The opioid epidemic also took center stage last week during a Festival Ideas session sponsored by the Charleston Gazette-Mail and West Virginia University. Experts on the panel there said it could take decades to overcome the stigma associated with drug abuse, although bringing the issue out in the open certainly helps. Also on the panel was Pulitzer Prize-winning reporter Eric Ayre, who said legislators continue to look for ways to stop the epidemic. Despite the efforts of so many in the state, however, Ayre said the problem keeps getting worse.
And Betsy, of course, those figures on the financial impact are staggering, but they fail to quantify the personal toll that this epidemic has taken on so many families across the Mountain State. While some of the efforts focus on figuring out how we got here, others are centered on figuring out how we get out of it.
And for those who haven't seen it, the heroin documentary done by WVU graduate Elaine McMillian Sheldon is a great look at how illegal drugs affect the city of Huntington. Users, family members, and emergency responders talk about how they cope in the movie, which has received an Oscar nomination.
And different communities in the state face unique challenges as well. In the Eastern Panhandle in Berkeley County, for example, the Recovery Resource Center helped 240 individuals in the first 6 weeks of this year. It's compared to an average of 137 people a month the center helped in 2017.
More and more emergency responders are also carrying naloxone, an opioid antagonist that can help people who have overdosed on heroin or a similar drug. Many of those fighting the state's drug problems agree it's important to have positive stories heard, so others struggling with addiction have hope.